Hi, my name is Mary, and in today's video I'm going to be sharing with you a nonfiction micro-review of this book, Who Says You're Dead? Medical and Ethical Dilemmas for the Curious and Concerned by Jacob Appel. Who Says You're Dead is a series of 79 medical and ethical quandaries that the author poses to you as the reader. Each of them takes the form of a different chapter, which has a couple of paragraphs of a scenario positing a different situation that might come up in the medical world, and then follows that by asking you what you would do in that situation. After he's asked you to consider what you would do, he presents a couple of sides of the argument. He does this by presenting the background history of what has happened, current developments in medical science that are making this a much more profound issue, the precedents, and in some case legal precedents for what has been done, and then a kind of the couple of sides of the issue. So each one of these chapters is self-contained and has a different medical background to it. As someone who doesn't have a medical background myself, I had a couple of concerns before I started reading this book. The first was that I wouldn't understand some of the questions. However, Appel has written quite extensively for a popular audience, and it's clear that he knows how to get across the different medical diagnoses and the different technologies in medicine in a way that is easy to understand. I will say right off the bat that I really enjoyed this book. It felt like a very fast read. I was able to get through the chapters quickly, and it left me with a lot of food for thought. I think this would be a perfect book club book for some morbidly minded people, or some people that are very interested in medicine, or at least a buddy read with somebody who you think you can have a productive discussion with. Hopefully not someone who you know you have some differences, because the questions that this book asks can be quite contentious, and I can imagine that they would cause some problems if you had somebody who had very different views from you. I did not end up buddy reading this because I just didn't have anybody else who was interested in reading it. However, I do plan to foist my copy off on as many people as possible. My mother works in medicine. I think she would really enjoy reading this, and I think that that's the kind of environment that's best for it. Certainly afterwards, I found myself wanting to just bring up some of these questions to my housemates or to people at my work, saying, what do you think would happen if, for example, and then pose some of the questions that this book asks. It makes it a very fun read. That being said, no book is perfect, and the problem that I had with this book is actually the ethics of the book, and that is its own quandary. Obviously, I would never want to suggest that ethics as a field should not exist or shouldn't tackle difficult questions. That's not what I'm trying to get at. In fact, I found it kind of interesting that the ways that some of my reactions to these scenarios changed. For example, what I mean is that in the course of the book, there were certain chapters that I found that I read them and I thought, who is even asking this question? How can this even be a question that's discussed? And then I realized that a lot of those ones were the ones that personally affected either me or my family or people that I know. Those were the ones that I really felt were troubling to read and had me thinking, this shouldn't even be a question. However, that's the field of ethics. That's what ethics is for. The thing is that I think that some of these questions definitely have in mind a able-bodied audience, and that people with disabilities might find it troubling that their lives are reduced to these kinds of hypothetical scenarios where somebody who has no impact or has not experienced any of these disabilities feels that they have a say. The questions that this book asks sometimes put you in the position of a doctor, sometimes they put you in the position of a judge, and so I don't think the book is trying to suggest that anybody should have the right to choose in some of these medical scenarios. Certainly it has in mind a kind of expertise, and it's just written for a general audience. However, I do think it's something to consider. There's a whole section in here called Making Babies, which is about the ethics of birth, and in many ways, many of these questions and chapters were just questions of eugenics. The whole chapter could basically be, do you agree with eugenics, yes or no? And for someone like me, who is certainly against eugenics, there's something very troubling in reading so many of these scenarios, and especially in the precedents that the book offers, some of it was very disturbing reading. I'm going to put a list of the triggers that I can think of for this book in the description of this video. Go have a look at that. It's not comprehensive, it's just what's coming to my mind, and each of these can be individually troubling in their own ways depending on your medical history and your ethical considerations. However, that's not going to stop me from recommending this book. I ended up giving it 4 stars. It's something that I enjoyed reading the entire way through once I was getting over those chapters that I found personally a little bit troubling. And what I most enjoyed about it was that it's given me so much food for thought. If you're a fan of the podcast Sawbones, which is a medical history podcast, and you find yourself after every episode wanting to research more about whatever particular medical topic that they read, this is a book for you because it gives me the exact same feeling. There are so many both medical disorders and legal cases and scenarios and new technologies. There's a huge emphasis on new technologies in this book and the evolving ethics that come along with them. I think that after reading this book, I want to research so many more, and I have a few sticky tabs in this book that I've been meaning to pull out so that I can actually get to reading some of that material. Alright, there it is. That's my nonfiction micro-review for Who Says You Are Dead. Let me know if you have read this book or what books you are reading in the comments down below. Thank you very much for watching. Bye!